Welcome to another video on smart architectural programming, and this is another video on our introduction to Java series. And if you're following along our accompanying book to the introduction to Java videos, you'll be familiar with a lot of major concepts in Java that we've covered up till this point. So today's topic is also a crucial one, essential for the foundations of any budding Java programmer, and it is blocks in Java. Understanding blocks would help you write better and more structured code. So let's break it down and make it so that you become proficient in leveraging and understanding blocks. So first thing first, in Java, a block is we need to understand first what are blocks, right? So what are blocks in Java basically? In Java, a block is a group of 0 or more statements enclosed within curly braces. Blocks define scopes, control execution, and help with better organization of your code. There are different types of blocks in Java, and today we'll cover all types of blocks. But before we go into that, remember yesterday when we were covering scopes in Java, you might remember we mentioned that the curly braces ultimately determine the scoping of the variables in Java. Right? So let's qualify that statement a little more. Blocks ultimately determine the scoping of Java. So if a variable is declared in a certain block, it is accessible throughout that block. If it isn't declared in that block, it isn't accessible outside of that block. So with that qualification, let's jump into the different types of block we have in Java. And the first block that we have is instance initializer blocks basically. So what are these blocks? So these blocks are used for initializing instance variables in Java and execute every time an object or a class is created basically. Let's see an example. So as you can see the code here that we have in our online Java compiler IDE that we're using, that every time an object of example is created, the instant initializer block executes before the constructor basically. So every time the class object is created, the instance initializer block, which is a block that we create, automatically executes this block whenever a class object is created basically. So it's just an automatic block that always runs when a certain object is created. That's what an instance initializer block is summarily basically. After that, we have something called static blocks. So what are static blocks? These blocks execute only once when the class is loaded into the memory. They are mainly used for static variable initialization. So what do we mean by that? Let's break that down. So you see our code here, right? We have that static block right at the top from line 2 onwards. Notice how the static block executes before the main block. This is because the static block runs only once when the class is first loaded. So we have this before the main block because static block has data we want it to run as soon as this code is loaded, but we don't want to run it more than once. So it's loaded, it gets that information into the execution environment, and after that it's just a dot block, it doesn't do anything else. So that is what a static block is and its purpose in Java code execution basically. So let's move on to the third type of blocks that we need to discuss, which are method blocks. So these blocks are simply blocks inside a method that execute when the method is called. So simply speaking, these are blocks that are within a class method, and whenever that method is run, that block is automatically executed. So these are method blocks, simply speaking, right? Let's look at this screen here. You'll see this code where we are discussing a method block. Here, when the display is called, the block inside it executes. So when you see that a display object called, a display method called, the block inside is automatically executed. So that is what we call a method block. So with that, we'll move on to the last type of blocks that we have in Java, which are synchronized blocks. So what are synchronized blocks? These are crucial in multi-threaded applications to prevent race conditions, and we'll be discussing multi-threaded applications and race conditions and all the good things related to that in concurrency right at the end of the book. But it's good to give you a little bit of a sneak preview when we're explaining the blocks concept. So if we look at the code here for synchronized blocks here, the synchronized block here basically ensures that only one thread can execute the block at a time, preventing conflict. So this is only there to make sure that if we have concurrency or multi-threading, or if you're running the code on multiple avenues at the same time, it does not run the same thing, or it does not run objects that conflict with each other at the same time, basically. So that is the notion of synchronized blocks in Java. So let's summarize basically. So we've covered instance initializer blocks, we've covered static blocks, we've covered method blocks, and we've covered synchronized blocks. Each of these would serve a unique purpose in Java, helping you write efficient and organized code. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Smart Architectural Programming. Also hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. So also, if you're following along on our accompanying book series, at this point you have completed chapter 3, and we'll be jumping on to the next chapter on our book. So with that, we're going to wrap up, and we'll see you in our next video. Happy coding!